let's get on with you, mate. I want to talk about your amazing career, how you got into boxing. Go back to the beginning a little bit, mate, if I'm honest, like, you know, where it all started. You had a career spanning of 45 fights, 35 wins, 7 losses, 3 draws, 13 KOs, but you done it all, man. And against the odds, by the way, because I covered all your career. Remember you in 2006, and I'm sitting there and you go, when you're watching a fighter develop, you go, yeah, he's good, him. You beat the end of Michael Brody's career at the end and everything else. You go, not bad, him. You know what? He's going to win a British, could win a European, but you don't see, like, it was a bit like that, you know, when Josh Warrington was boxing, I thought, yeah, he'll be a British champion. That's where he'd be. But you, as you stepped up, you improved so much as a fighter and went on to have an amazing career, mate. You really did. I mean, how did you get into boxing?
Yeah, so I got into boxing with, I think, listen, I would say anyone who's lucky enough to have a good relationship with a father sort of will be around him quite a bit. And my dad used to box as a professional. So he'd long been retired, but he was just keeping fit. I was sort of a kid full of energy, doing a lot of different sports. And he took me to the boxing gym with him because there was no one at the time. I think he was keeping fit, and it stopped him getting someone to mind me. So I tagged along, and you just pick up the basics, don't you? You pick up the basics, and I took to it pretty well. And I remember then his work changed. So a few years later, I knew you had to be 11 to fight. And I was a very competitive kid. So I knew I was approaching 11. That was it. I went straight back to the gym. And then I was hooked straight away. I was up straight away. And I knew straight away I was playing bits of football, doing cross country. And I knew that was the sport for me. You know, it was my mum who took me back then, getting the bus to the Fox Amateur Boxing Club, which was in Ancoats at the time. So yeah, it was. I think from that, just before my 11th birthday, I was hooked, and I think literally within a month or two, I was getting medical. Do you know? Because I'd picked up basics. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I picked up the basics, and I was, I was really, just keen to start fighting.
And how did your amateur career go? Like, how many fights did you have? Did you represent England?
Yeah, do you know what, Spence? I always, with my amateur career, like, I look back and sort of there was great times, but then I was also sort of a little bit, I felt like I didn't really get too much of a fair chance. I boxed for England an handful of times. I only had 62 fights, and that sounds a lot, but bear in mind, I was boxing for 8 years. I was competing from 11 till I was like 19. Yeah, sort of like, yes, it was 19 approaching 20. So it's not really that many, when you think about it.
Yeah. Well, I was 11 till 19. I turned pro at 19, but I had my first fight on my 11th birthday, and I had 118. To put it into perspective,
there we go.
I had about 118 fights. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had never felt like I was getting chances, and then I boxed. Even like when I always remember being on a Young England camp. And boxing, there was a lad I knew we boxed a few times. I was boxing him on his club show 5 days later or something like that. And we was both on the England squad together. So they kept us apart from sparring. And anyway, we boxed on his club show. I beat him. And he was a good lad and that, but I beat him fair on his own show and stuff like that. And I remember a few days later, he got a call to go to the Junior Commonwealth Games in Australia. And I was just like, but how does that work? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
so
mad,
it was always it was crazy, Jay, because when you're just young as well, and it's a bit harder to understand and explain. I was just thinking about how's that happening? And I think whether it was more suited to computer scoring at the time, but I just thought I've just beat him, fair and square on his own club show. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't as if it was a jury's decision or anything like that, and who we were sparring with, and I felt like I was doing the anyway. And I just then what happened as an amateur, what happened as a senior. I remember winning the ABAs. I boxed in 4 Nations, boxed against Ireland and stuff. But I just happened to be around at the same time as when one of the greatest amateurs we produced in Frankie Gavin was around at the same weight. But it's not in any way bitter about that, because Frankie was an unbelievable talent. I really believe he's one of the very best amateurs we've ever produced. When you look at it, he's the only world gold medalist, isn't he? But it was one of them where I was around, and obviously Frankie was going to the major tournaments, and rightly so, but I wasn't really going to any other tournaments. I was just going to training camps. in Crystal Palace, then Sheffield, and then Frankie. But then I knew how hard it was for him to make the weight. So I was half thinking, he's going to show. And unfortunately, he never made the weight. But I was just thinking, I'm sort of just waiting round here to go to training camps, which I wasn't really enjoying that much. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah, it's very much a shut. Like to explain what the amateur system was like back then, Jake. It was very much a shut shop. Like if they had that, it was very political as they had their number ones, and it didn't matter if they crashed out the ABAs in the or in the quarterfinals or whatever, they would still get picked to go to all the big tournaments.
Really,
that's what it was like.
They had their favourites that they wanted to.
And it was very political. It's like you go, well, I've beaten him, and he's going to the Olympic Games or whatever, and that was half the reason why I turned pro. Like, I was only senior a year. I was 17, went 18. I boxed in the Commonwealth Games, but I'd been selected because I went into a multi-nations tournament and won that, and got a selection off the back of it. So it was like they couldn't. Do you know what I mean? It was like, has he got enough experience? I'm like, well, I'm the number one.
Yeah, but we're giving that experience.
Yeah, I know. So I went to the Commonwealth Games, won a silver, but I lost to a guy, Robbie Peden, in the final.
Yes.
Robbie
Is he the Welsh lad or the Aussie lad?
No, Aussie lad. The one.
Aussie lad, sorry, the Aussie lad, yeah.
Yeah, he won a world featherweight title. He lost to
That's it, and he was a world champion, yeah.
But I lost 2018 in the final, and the fucking same thing was that computer scoring. I won that, and it effectively forced me to turn pro at 19. When really I should have stayed into the Olympics, where people that I'd beaten had won silvers and whatnot. Yeah. But the system fucked it. And that's the point of what I'm talking about with the unfair decisions to pick people that shouldn't be going, or the scoring, etc.
Was that the computer scoring, Spence, where it was played in the arena?
Yeah. And so I was like 7-4 up, 11 all. I lost 2018. I go, I'm getting stronger.
How aware of you? Could you see the score as the boxer?
No, but they feed you the scores and stuff.
Yeah, someone would come at the end of the rounds, wouldn't they, with the ticket, like saying how you was.
Yeah.
Well, then that's not straight to that, G.
Yeah.
I think if you watch I think was 2012 Olympics the last ones, or when I don't know, it was 2012 or 2016, Jake, but you'd get a fighter who might be 6 rounds up going into the last round, and they'd literally be running, and it become it stopped. From an entertainment point of view, it becomes very annoying, and I feel like Spence saying it now. I know there wasn't much between us in age, but was you 4-2s?
Well, no, in amateurs?
Yeah.
No, so I was boxing. Like my last fight in the amateurs was in 1994. So
right. So you was 3-3s.
3-3s, yeah. That was 3-3s, yeah.
But that's what I mean. And I think with the amateurs, it almost become like a game of fencing. Do you know?
Yeah,
in a way.
You try to get ahead in the first round.
That's
how it beat me, because I was like throwing 4 or 5 punches, and he mastered the art of going pump. So he was picking points, but I was winning the fight. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally.
What is going on, man? Like, this system is not suited for me, hence why I turned pro. And I think that, the whole system needed changing with the amateurs, which they've sort of done now. I mean, I know they've got this corruption with the scoring and whatnot going on now, but going back to the no head guards and, the old 3-round system and whatnot was the only way forward, really, because it was just the system wasn't working. And I'm sure, and that's what I was talking about with the professional boxing at the moment, with the judging. The system's just not working, man. They've got something needs changing. I don't know what that is, but it needs changing.
And that's the problem there, Spence and Jake, because if you think about them, we've just said out, I was complaining about computer scoring. Well, we both was complaining about computer scoring, but then we're talking about a really bad decision, which is, that's on, it's, 10-9, 10 by must system. 10. So that's annoying. And then, but you're thinking, you're still going to get bad decisions now over 3-3s. Now it's not computer scoring in the amateurs, and you shouldn't have to accept in boxing, amateur or pro, that there's always going to be bad decisions. But unfortunately, I believe there is. But I just don't know how, like that 117, 111 card that weekend, like that's when I think, now that should be explained. Watch this fight back with us, and will you just tell us how you've seen this round that way, or what you was looking for? Do you know what I mean? Because then that's when the shouts of corruption comes
I agree.
in. It's wrong.
Well, what's the way around it? What did they increase the judges? What do they do? Have 5 judges or what?
I think there's two ways you could do it. I think that to change the system, they could increase the judging, but to say have five judges, but two of them are independent in a different room watching it. Like, do you know what I mean? Where they can't get the sound of the crowd or whatever, or
they're just watching it on the screen. So they're just
maybe watching it on the screen. I mean, that's one way. Or like Ant says, if you look at the scoring, like 117, 111 at the weekend with Maxi Hughes as an example, the boxing board or whatever commission it is always says, yep, well, we're looking into this, but nothing seems to happen. You go, well, if they can't explain how they've come to that number, they should lose their they should lose their titles. And then that would stop that from happening. Like, because if you're in control of, effectively, you're controlling someone's destiny. So, you know what I mean? Someone's future. They're trying to provide for their family in a fucking thing where people are putting their lives on the line. They deserve a fair hearing. And you go, if you can't come up with how you've come up with 117, 111, that is just because you go, they should not be scoring a boxing match.
Whether it's suspended, demoted, someone's got to happen.
Crazy, mate, crazy. So listen, what was your proudest moment in the boxing?
Proudest moment.
Yeah, I mean, because you had your ups and downs in your career, didn't you?
You're dead right. I did. I have no proudest moment. I always say it's a tie between obviously winning a world title and but probably my proudest was walking out in Manchester as a world champion, introduced after great Michael Buffer, and then winning a fight where I was a bit of an underdog, even though I was reigning world champion. So walking world champion and walking out world champion, it was at the arena. Yeah, I'd say that was my proudest moment against Ismael Barroso.
Yeah, was
just really, he's been a bit, well, I'd say a bit. When we're on about bad judging, bad refereeing, I don't know if you've seen it recently with Rolly Romero, who Hawara Davis is now fighting. I think it might be the worst stoppage I've ever seen. He was up on the card. And so, it was. I'd say that was probably my finest hour, with everything when you take into consideration and stuff like that. And, a night that I sort of remember forever. I remember after it, like, friends, family, all partying, and
it must have been a different feeling, Anthony, going out as world champion as opposed to coming as the challenger.
A little bit, and I was, obviously I was proud. I was a proud Mancunian and being there, and sort of there was a great atmosphere in there that night. I was very lucky to have it a good few times, but like that night, because I think there's sort of fear factor, because obviously Barroso had just knocked out Kev Mitchell, and so I think that was the reason why I went in there such a big underdog. But it was you felt sort of responsibility. Responsibility walking out as a world champion and things like that.
He started that fight. I was working that night.
He was.
I was worried for you before the fight was made, because obviously the Kevin Mitchell thing. I'm going, this kid looks exceptional. I don't know if he
did great in that fight, didn't he?
Yeah.
When he come out, the first few rounds you had were quite torrid as well, because he was so heavy-handed. It was ridiculous.
He was.
And I was thinking, fuck it, and it was an amazing turnaround. I think that was, for me, like what I think for you, like sticking in there. And after 6 rounds, he started to look like he was tiring. And then you use your experience, recognize that, went for it, and fucking ended up stopping him.
Yeah.
But that was a great win. Now, do you know what I was going to say? My proudest moment through your career was probably the fight after the incident that happened. Someone tried to burgle your house, and then you broke your ankle, didn't you? Got a fractured skull. And I remember seeing you in hospital thinking, poor bastard's career's done, man.
He's never boxing again.
And then he's never boxing again. Then to see you doing that ring walk again, just coming out after that.
It's mad.
So that was inspirational, man.
Did you have moments at that time, Anthony, that you thought it was all over?
Of course, Jake, because you know, sometimes you can't help. I knew positive thinking was a big part of it, and I was so positive, but at the back of your mind, it's always creeping in there. So I say it a few times, like at the time, I'd not long moved into my first house, my little family, and you're proud as a man, isn't it? And I thought, I can't believe this is all I've ever known, really. Do you know what I mean? I was thinking, wow, I'm going to have to move, me, missus, my little boy back to the mum, and, back to her mum and dad's house. And I was like, you just had a bit of pride, didn't you? And I was like, oh my God, without this, I don't know what I'll do. So, of course. And that was probably obviously we drew that night, and that was a madly controversial draw as well. But I knew it was mad. Everyone was saying, how you took it so well. But I think I took it so well because for a good while, I thought I might never be able to fight again. And I just fought for a world title at the arena. Although it was a draw and I should have got the win.
Well, you looked at that in the 5th round in the next fight, didn't you, against Perez?
Yes,
that's right.
It. Yeah, so I knew I had to take it the next time. But yeah, so no, I think that was a proud night. That was a proud night.
Just to go back, Anthony, just to explain to the listeners, you you're on the verge of a world title shot when you're going back to 2015, and then what happened? You found a couple of burglars in your house. What happened? What, you woke up?
Yeah, no, it was next door's house, and it was near Christmas, wasn't it? 2014, yeah, because they were running 2015, yeah. So it's I'd found, and then basically alarm was going off, and I always say it was I'd been given the night off the running track, so I went in and I joked around next door and said, your alarm's going off, and I said so I was checking up, no one's in there.
What time of night was this, then?
It was the dark night, so I reckon it was about 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then looked over the garden fence, up with a torch on my phone, and then two heads popping out of the patio doors, and
oh, fucking hell.
Yeah, took chase, caught them, and when I caught them, obviously I couldn't walk them both back. And then on the blind side, concrete slabs come over me head, and
fucking hell.
Yeah, and that was it, and it was one of them. They're proud. I'm always going, I want not out. I want to jump back up like after one knee straight away, but
jump back up with a broken ankle and a fractured skull.
Yeah, I probably didn't help jumping up, because when I jumped up straight away, I tried to grab him as he was climbing the fence, and I probably put weight. I wouldn't be surprised if that was. I broke my ankle in 2 places. I thought I probably broke it as well. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it's but yeah, no. Listen, it was a dark time for us, but it made the journey that much sweeter when we got to where I wanted to be.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's incredible. It's an inspirational story, mate. It really is. Like, never give up on your dreams, because he was told that boxing was very unlikely.
Yeah, it was very unlikely to box again. So I always say, listen, if you're a boxer, and you know how strict the medicals are now, people are getting pulled all the time. But yeah, fractured skull isn't the best injury, is it, for a professional boxer? So thankfully I've been all right since and stuff. So yeah, no, I'm thankful.
So looking back, Anthony, is there anything you'd change about your career? Or, I mean, obviously you've gone into retirement now. It's always a difficult time for any sportsman, boxers especially, and like the conversation we have all the time, with Spencer, like it's such an intense career, in it. And as you say, it starts so young, and then all of a sudden it's sort of like, what do you do with your time? And that it's such a big change in it to retire as a boxer. How was that transition for you? And sort of like, and now you've had a bit of time away and you look back, what do you reflect back on your career and that?
No, do you know what, JP? I reflect back with I can reflect back and be satisfied. And that's why now I always say it. Spencer's probably heard me say it. Well, he definitely has at some of the events that we'll do with some of the amateur gyms and stuff like that. And people say, do you miss it? And I go, no, I don't miss it, because I achieved everything I wanted to achieve. Listen, you can look back at certain parts and think, I wish I would have approached this differently. But you could do that always. But I'm satisfied what I got out of boxing. And listen,
you found direction, though, didn't you, after boxing? What I'm saying is that a lot of fighters struggle with life after boxing, because you lose your identity as a boxer. They can't fit into life as a normal civilian, but like you do now, working with the Maverick Stars Trust, you're an ambassador for them. You're heavily involved with that, and you're doing stuff with Don McGuinness.
That's it, with Dom. Some around the media side things, like say with Maverick, I've done them alongside you with Maverick Stars, and that's great. Sort of inspiring the next generation a bit. I'm coaching professionally. I've got a lad on weekend, and it's one of them. Boxing's still a huge part of my life. So if it was like, right, that's it, you're not boxing again, you're not helping out sort of with Maverick Stars, with sort of some of the young fighters of the future, being around these big events, on television, on different platforms, then I'd probably miss it. And I would miss boxing, but I'm around it as much as ever now. And listen, I stay half fit. You've got to stay half fit, but when people say, do you miss it? I don't, because Spence says something, and it's such an intense career. And I think in the end, it was like from especially it started getting bigger, but especially after the incident with the burglars, my popularity sort of that was daft on me. So that best thing that ever happened to you, that. But you know, your popularity really risen.
Yeah.
I remember that time you had so much support around that time, didn't you? Yeah.
I did, and it's your profile raised massively. I know there's better ways to raise your profile, but just how it happened. And
well, you become an inspirational person, mate, and that's
I
was
thankful, and
people hang on to that, you know.
Of course, mate, and then obviously then with the boxing, then there was a big fight after big fight after big fight, and I think another thing there is it's hard, it's intense, and it probably sort of took its toll a little bit towards the end. So I think like people say, "Oh, you're not going to carry on" and stuff like that. But no, I've stayed half fit, but I'd never consider coming back or anything like that. Because I'm happy doing what I'm doing, the things that you mentioned there, and it's one of them. I say it all the time, probably a broken record, but this staying in this boxing, I've saw too many people who I know personally staying it too long, and I've seen the effects it has on them, and it might not be straight away, but a few years later, that's when it can catch up with you, and I don't want to be that person, you know, without sounding horrible. I want, you know, what I'm around. The amateur kids are coming in shortly. I'll be helping out with them. I want to be sort of something to, you know, inspire them and stuff like that. And listen, I could have hung around and earned a little bit more money and stuff like that, but listen, money comes and goes, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? And there's always ways to make money and stuff like that, but I just think when it comes at the price of your health, it's a bit different.
I think in some ways as well, Anthony, like that is a measure of success, isn't it? When you can make that decision to step away, you know what I mean? You're not tied in because, oh, I've got a fucking mortgage, I've got a you know what I mean? It's like you've got to that point where you can make that decision, and you made it in, you know, you're very clear in what. So yeah, that's like, you know, that's
absolutely. I think you need a bit of an exit strategy in whatever you do, don't you? And I think that's it. And like I said, listen, I could have probably hung around and listen, being honest, probably would have been fed to some red hot prospects, got a decent payday, and you could have done something with that money. But I also think like the pride, like I've seen,
it's about legacy, isn't it? It's all about legacy. You know,
that's
you lost to Lomachenko. You come back, you have one win at home in front of your own people. Yeah. Job done, man. Like,
no, that's it, totally. And really now, I always consider just going after Lomachenko because I was probably done just before that when I look back now. But I'm glad I didn't then think, oh, carry on a bit longer, because if I did, then I would have been getting sort of fed to good fighters and stuff. And I've seen, like, you know, lads who I know who've carried on too long, and I think, nah, I'd rather keep my pride a little bit more. Do you know what I mean? It's not being scared to beat, scared to take a loss, because that happened in my career a number of times. But I think then when you're losing to lads who you never would have once lost, then, you know, I think, just call it at that.
Your little brother's boxing now.
So he is,
what's your thoughts on that? I mean, he's 1-0 now, isn't he? He won.
He had his first fight in Manchester, so it was a pretty emotional night, really. Like when I look back, because he was just a fat teenager who'd lost his way. Do you know, when I was boxing and stuff like that, and he, you know, so he's done really well. He's knuckled down. And he's doing well. He's doing well. It's his birthday today, actually. His birthday today, but 25 today. So but he's trained. Like, this is where boxing can be so good for it, because there was never any pressure from me to box. If I'm honest, I would have rather him never boxed. But he's someone who's a better person with boxing in his life. And listen, I'm not saying he's bad and stuff like that, but he's going down the wrong road, and he's much better with boxing in his life than without it. So.
Yeah,
that's where it is. Yeah.
And how involved are you with his career, Anthony?
Yeah, I coach.
I do.
And manage him. So but I'm very heavily involved, and it doesn't always work like that with family, does it? But so far, so good.
You hear of a lot of father-son relationships, like Joe Calzaghe, Enzo, Richie Woodall, Lenny Woodall. Like, you hear of those, but you don't hear of brother relationships. Like, quite unusual, that one. Your older brother to be managing, coaching you and all that. That's really unique, man. But I love that. I love that story.
Klitschko's were, I suppose, the main ones, weren't they? They're always there, weren't they, for each other?
Together. Yeah, there's always very much together, weren't they, and stuff. But he was always around me anyway, you know, sort of growing up, even when he was a kid. So, yeah.
Look,
And actually, what one bit of advice would you give a boxer starting out?
I think starting out, it's one of them where, do you know what? It changes a little bit, but one thing I'll say now for a fighter starting out is, I'm having it probably myself. We can have another level of one where, unless you sell a lot of tickets starting off, you've got to be prepared to lose money. In the sense, when I say lose money, is you could easily go out there, get a job, and earn more money. It's tough. So, and not everyone obviously is going to get on your TV shows. That's not going to happen. So when you're fighting on these non-TV shows and stuff like that, you've got to cover yourself, put your bit back in the pot for the promoter, and then you'll start taking away wages. So I feel like you've got to be prepared for that. Do you know what I mean? I feel we've got to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
And it's right. And I think that any career, you've got to just be prepared for speed bumps. I think I learned that more than anyone. There was a lot of speed bumps in the road, for me. But thanks, like I say, it made the end destination that much sweeter, because it looked like it absolutely wasn't going to happen for me more than once. But I just think like that. So perseverance is a big thing. But you've got to know about. You've got to be realistic at the start, thinking turning over as a professional is very different. As a professional boxer, is very different to signing a professional contract as a footballer. You've got to understand the two very, very different things.
Yeah.
And it's a tough sport. It really is. So
I think like that reminds me of like acting in a way. Like I think they're very similar in some ways. Like there's thousands of actors, and there's probably only a few at the top that make decent living, any money. And also you got the same thing. You got years and years and years of working for next to no wages, just learning your craft, doing little plays here and there, and it's all experience and it all. But you have to go through that. You have to push your way through that.
Exactly that. People. I'm guessing people would see you like. You'd be on TV screens every night, and they think, "Oh, he's this and that." But they probably didn't see the struggle before it. They didn't see the struggle before it.
Absolutely.
And it's mad. And I think in boxing, very much like that. There's times when, probably the stupidity. I don't know if the stupidity, the ego, or whatever you call it, but where I probably should have gone and got a job when I was, I was living at my mum and dad's in a bunk bed with my little brother, and I was. I was old enough to doing that when all my mates I was on a bus pass when all my mates was driving and stuff, and it was just stuff like that. So you had to be prepared to swallow your pride a little bit. Yeah,
it's the sacrifices, isn't it? You make on to get where you want to go eventually, isn't it?
It is, and I think, like you say, as long as you've got to be willing to, sacrifice stuff like that, and you obviously you have at that time, but you got to work hard. And again, what I said at the start, having that bit of luck, you get that bit of luck, then it can happen.
Yeah.
But I think boxing's one of those games, isn't it, that cheats get found out, basically. You try and if you leave any stone unturned, you're going to get found out.
Of course you are.
You only get out what you put in. And what it is with boxing, and this is what my experience is for it, all the ones that were really, really, really talented as kids thought that they had already done it. They thought they had It's the kids that graft and graft and graft. When you go into 12 rounders, that's what amateur boxing is so different to professional, because 3 rounds is great and you might look brilliant. And still, when you get into round 10, 11, 12,
those championship rounds,
it's a psychological battle. You're fighting on your gum shield, and it ain't about boxing technique. It's about who wants it the most, who's got the strongest mindset.
How many times do we see it? How many times do we see a talented lad turn over, decorated amateur, turn over, turn professional, and then they get dragged into deep waters sometimes it's not even a 12 rounder, it might be an 8 or a 10.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't put them in the same arena, or in the same same ring. Not the same arena, as an amateur, never mind the same ring. But they're two very, very different sports. They really are. But it's always a way. And I think it's a bit cheesy, but I do always love the saying, talent beats hard work. Hard work beats talent. When talent doesn't work hard. I do that sometimes. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yeah.
And eventually it does listen, you might get away with it over 4 rounds, 6 rounds. But then once you start stepping up, it becomes very different.
Yeah. And I wanted to finish on Maverick Stars, mate. Maverick Stars.
Yeah.
Ambassador for the Maverick Stars Trust. They're an amazing charity that support us on this podcast, make this happen. We were always talking about Tony and Charlotte and what they, what they do. Give us a little bit about, what's going on with Maverick Stars at the moment. We know you're heavily involved in them.
Yeah. Do you know what? They're just good people who do so much for boxing clubs up and down the country. Some of the courses they run right from. I mean, I remember recently there's doing defibrillators up and down the country in gyms that is needing like that kind of campaign. And then I know every week, every Thursday, we have a veterans class here with one of the coaches, Dom, who takes that. And it's just like you saw it there at the boxer shows. We'll work with some of the local amateur gyms, and you see when some of those kids come in and then they have some of the fighters who are fighting on that show weekend. You can see what it means to them and how it inspires them. And no, they do unbelievable things. I remember listening in lockdown. It was a very sort of humbling thing, and I'm not after a pat on the back because I was basically just an Uber Eats driver. I was basically a Meals on Wheels. I was just picking the meals up and dropping them off. But I remember at Stars they would do X amount of meals and we'd be dropping them off to, you've not been my gym yet, have you, Spence? But
no.
Jake, where my gym is, Jake Spence, it's on like a bit of a rough estate, like a lot of boxing gyms. And obviously during COVID, during those times, where free school meals, there was so many meals getting, Maverick got in touch with local schools to see us on free school dinners and stuff like that. And I was dropping the meals at the houses. And it was just like, it was humbling to see, what they was doing. And that was because of Maverick Stars. Yeah, I was driving around in a car, but they was making sure there was dropped off for us, here. And you sort of, it's what they do for the community as well. So it's not always just in a boxing gym. I mean, listen, a lot of the times it is and stuff like that, but it's also, what they do for the community and stuff like that. Like I'm saying, some do actually, but there's a good handful of veterans who will never box again, but it gives them that togetherness, once they leave the forces and stuff and meeting back up. And now they do so many good courses. And I know just gyms up and down the country. I know, like I say, the defibrillator campaign was a very big one. But there's all kind of things that they've done. But no, they're great. They're doing great work.
Yeah. Fantastic. Brilliant.
Anyone can check out anything they're doing on Instagram or socials, can't they? Maverick Stars Trust. But
absolutely.
Do good stuff.
Brilliant.
Listen, Anthony, thanks so much for your time. What's the plan now? You got the kids coming in.
We've got the amateurs, we've got the amateurs coming in shortly. So in with them, and then what I forgot, I've got the where my gym is part of them. There's a football club next door, so a bit of pre-season for them. So busy times.
Brilliant.
We'd love to come up to the gym at some point.
It'd be great to have you boys. Honest, Jake Spence, you're always welcome.
Yeah, we'd love that, mate. We'd love that. Your gym's not the one that's attached to that. It's like and they've got a little pool table and that in there. It's not
yours.
I'll come up last time. That was it's the one. It's a fantastic gym.
No, that was Walkden. That was Maverick Stars, and Jamie Moore's and Charlotte.
All right. So there, I was getting confused when you were talking. I can't remember.
Do you know what? The next show in Manchester is where you're both here. You'll have to come down. It's literally 15 minutes from the Manchester.
Right, September the 2nd, we've got Smith.
BP New Bank.
Of course, September the 2nd, man. That's when we do it. So we'll be up there end of August time. Jake's going to come up anyway to the show.
I'll see you next month.
Yeah,
sounds great.
I'll put that in the diary. September the 2nd, we'll come out that weekend.
Of course, great. I'll be there that night. And
Well, listen, and keep doing what you're doing, and you're doing brilliant. You're doing brilliant with the grassroots. You're doing amazing stuff with Maverick Stars. I see you each week running up and down the country, doing stuff for them as well. Respect to you, mate. You're an inspirational guy who's just had an unbelievable career, man. And in the middle of it, you had that little bumpy bit where you had to overcome. And hey, listen, respect where respect's due, mate. You went on and had an unbelievable career. So well done for that, Ant.
Boys, no, honestly, it's always a pleasure catching up. And mate, I look forward to end of August. She's both down here, do a session, and we might even have time to have the kids here. We'll go and get some food after.
I'd love that, mate. All right, brilliant. Cheers, Ant.
Okay, boys.
Enjoy.
Cheers, Anthony.
Take care.